Hello friends, it's Lionheart here, and we have finally reached Patch Day. I am so excited to test out so many different things. And as a result, I have put together 12 decks for you to be able to play across all 6 factions. I know. You're welcome. I think I made 12. Pretty sure we made 12 in total. I guess you can help me count. These are basically supporting the new cards, and the first thing I will say, and the first thing anyone should say when they're telling you a deck is great on patch day, this is a patch day set of decks. They're good ideas in principle that you can probably nuance slightly down the line. Some of these decks may work really well on patch day, others may struggle because their counters are what is being played on patch day. Lots of different things for you to look at, lots of different things to try. Let me know what your favorites are. It's going to be a whistle-stop tour. Deck, and then links to them available for you. I will give you a brief overview of the cards, a brief overview of the gameplay strategy, before we jump straight in the next one after the other, If you like this kind of content, you want to see more of this from me, please let me know in the comments down below. A like goes a long way. I really appreciate it, and we may even be doing our very first live YouTube stream sometime this month, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Without any further ado, Gwent Deck Builder. The first thing I was excited for when I started this season was Rain. Rain's Skellige. Now, this is not a Golden Necker version, and you'll notice that the link that is shared in our deck spreadsheet does not look exactly like this. It hasn't got the Kraken in, it has Sunset Wanderers. The reason is, as of the time of recording this, Kraken doesn't seem to like play Gwent, is doing its absolute best, firstly, to look amazing in the premium, and secondly, to destroy the Play Gwent servers. So, when you copy this in from that spreadsheet list, make sure you switch the two of those around. But this is a Rain deck. It is all built around multiple Rain-based strategies, of course, your messengers of the sea being those terrifying Rain engines. Now, it thins pretty well when you consider we have a Neuromancy in here as well as Ermion, and addition to that, Reorgun is also thinning itself automatically. You do have that big end of round point slam, clear the board with Reorgun option as one of your potential win conditions and game plans. Kraken, of course, fantastic points and tempo into another round, building up more points from Storm. Remember, it's going to damage itself down by 3, so you're going to want to use one of the new Sea Serpents to make sure you get that extra bit of damage and bring your Kraken back home where it belongs. Kelpie list, we have 12 beasts in this deck, meaning Kelpie will spawn 4 turns of Rain. Of course, additionally, a potential engine as well. It's all about Rain. You do have the Megascopes in here to target the Messengers of the Sea. Single Seagull because it is an additional unique beast. As we do have the mid-range option of Corrupted Flaminica as well. Axel was a theory for this because it's also good into round 1 and is another decent option to bring back from Fukusha if you don't have your target of choice. But I'm inclined to say that Flaminica is better almost always, especially in a deck like this. We have lots of unique beasts. It can happily boost itself very, very easily. And lots of these beasts will be in the graveyard in round 2 and certainly into round 3. I think Flaminica is probably just as good, if not better, into a Golden Necker list like this. We'll get there in a second. That's deck number 1. Deck number 2. It is, as I mentioned, Golden Necker Rain, a very similar set of strategies. Golden Necker lists for Skellige particularly, and the Magic Compass might start to struggle if you see a lot of new Clog, so bear that in mind, as you won't be able to thin as well. This list does intentionally thin to 0, even -1 at points, to try and bear that in mind. You have the standard Golden Necker gameplay, slam multiple cards in a single turn. It allows you to play an engine, develop an engine, boost the engine, all in one go. But of course, it's still all about those Messengers of the Sea. Still about finding multiple versions and getting as much Rain value as possible. Reorgun, amazing value in this kind of list. Magic Compass targets typically is Fukusha, but Fulmar could be an option. Kraken even could be an option for you now as well, if you really need it. Kelpie in this list, just 3 turns of rain, not quite as many beasts. Maybe seeing a Guar and thinking, Lionheart, what is this? Quite frankly, when we were building this, it was a little bit awkward to get the number of beasts we needed and the right provision levels. A Golden Necker list without Unicorn and Chiron X feels crazy, but they're relics, they don't have the additional synergies, and this has both and is versatile as a lock or an unlock for one of your engines. It can be absolutely game-changing. As I mentioned, Roach, Knickers, both beasts, both great because they will usually thin in round 1 and be good options to make your Flaminica better. 2 and 3. I love these lists. Ones we did try out briefly today, and both performed very well. That's what we tried for Skellige. Now, let's go in order, shall we? Scoia'tael. Scoia'tael is elf, 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 elf. I do think a lot of the factions will be very greedy early on, as is always the case. This is no exception. This one is slightly less greedy. It's all about your usual elf strategy in round 1. So you're trying to out-tempo your opponent, take that round control with something like a Feign Death. Building as many waylays as possible for later with your Vanadane. Of course, Alyssa can put 2 of them back. But now you have the heist as well. It can allow you to replay that deployability from Vanadane and multiple other units, of course, for extra value. Your Simless, well, no longer is 5 the ceiling for this gentleman. 7, 9, I've even heard of 12 happening today. 12 Waylay Simless. I want to tell you I don't know how I feel about that, but I do. It wasn't this list, and that is very greedy and tends to fall down to itself. But yes, you have got some of the newer cards in here as well. Bear that in mind. Trickster is fantastic. A great early engine that can both proc your scenario and be great ongoing synergy in an elf deck. Really, really nice option there. Backup plan. We're only running 1 backup plan because I don't feel like we had the provisions or the need for it with so many elves already, to be completely honest. But we just wanted it there. There is one notable exclusion. I am not running Telianine at the moment in this deck. Now, an all-in Waylay deck, which is what you're about to see, that is more control heavy, probably ends up better a few days from now, and that runs Telianine over the scenario. We'll look at that one shortly. You could easily play this exact list, cut Feign Death, run Telianine instead, upgrade a 4 to a 5 or a 5 to a 6. It's an option. But in terms of your cargo targets, you have so many good options. Simless not one of them, unless you're playing something other than Waylays in multiple, which we're not. Venossiel, fantastic with the amount of Deadeyes you're going to have. Vanadane, as I mentioned, you're going to want. Isengrim, amazing. Yavin for double tool removal. Ciaran for double lock even are fantastic. Some of the targets from things you create from backup plan, also pretty useful. The list feels like it builds itself, but is actually harder than you would imagine. Quite a lot of people teching wide at the moment. I've seen multiple lacerates already, so be prepared, my friend. The next elf version, it is called Waylay. Yep, and it is much more control-oriented. It's Telianine, brilliant ability, fantastic, allows you to keep going effectively. That the combo here and the point slam that Telianine can play for is really, really nice. It is all about Waylays in this situation. Create as many as possible because A, your Simless will be incredible, and so will your Verno. The inclusion of a Heat Wave makes your matchup into Northern Realms infinitely better. Some control with Artifact Compression as well. Not too bad. An unlock in the form of Mahakamail, much, much cheaper. And some consistency for Maxi. It still plays like an elf deck. Lots of 4 provisions, lots of elves. But this one is really all focused on that Simless Waylay combo towards the end. One of the things you need to make sure is that you can get out of round 1 without overcommitting. Trying to keep your Vanadane safe is a challenge because, of course, when you're looking at cargo, it can't be played on a unit that was played this turn. So you can have your cargo set up on the board, amazing, but on blue coin, you're playing that for 0 points of tempo. Then you're playing your Vanadane. You can't play the Crystal Skull onto it because, of course, it couldn't gain what it needs if you did. It's a little bit awkward. You have to be mindful of what you want to do in that sort of setup. So you can lose on even with this and potentially then get your Simless bled out of you. That's where Telianine can end up being great as a lot of point value. But strong list. I've seen a lot of people do very well with this. Shout out to Tigress Zoe from my community for giving me this version of the list as we were building decks as well. Love it. And I hope you guys. That is our Scoia'tael. Next, I only made one Northern Realms list so far. It is all about Drakenborg. Now, there are lots of different ways you can look at this, and I think people are undervaluing this terrifyingly. Drakenborg, as you can see, absorbs the boost from a card that it pulls out, and of course that card is going to be Sigismund Dijkstra. You want this in your deck, and you are going to be targeting this with every feasible boost. Of course, your pincer maneuver. So, you have access to whatever you want, or rather whatever Northern Realms item you want. We're running a Nero. We are not running Amphibious Assault. A, because we don't have the provisions, and B, because we don't have any decent Northern Realms targets for it. This is exclusively build points on Dijkstra. This list could very easily be a 2-0 list. You can easily buff this massively because buffs are doubled. Okay, your All God is going to buff it. Instead of 2 points on that card, no problem, he's going to give it 4. Your offerings, you're looking for those. Amazing. Again, buff, it's going to double that boost value. We are not running original Dandelion, but the Redanian Agents, very important cards here. Every opportunity you get, you want to be boosting up your friend here, Sigismund Dijkstra. I have added in Mushy Truffle, and the reason is Drakenborg is your win condition. It will absorb Siggy's boosts. Consistently, that's going to be anywhere from 20 to 30 plus points. And the Order ability will boost another unit. Well, that is why our Dwimviandras here can be played up to 5 times. We have 2 Dwimviandras, a Reinforcements for another, and Necromancy to replay again. The reason I decided to go for Mushy Truffle and the Cintrian Enchantresses, well, it made the most sense to me that in the event that this gets heatwaved, and it is your heatwave target anytime you see it, at least the Dwimviandras are still playing for good value. 1 Redanian Secret Service. I love this card. I think it's brilliant. Just for that extra little bit of Purify synergy from Drakenborg here, so that you can unlock the item that it locks when it pulls out. Melitele's Temple, I haven't even mentioned it. It's just high value, guaranteed draw. Of course, draw a unit of your choice and buff it by your hand size. It's not going to be the cards you create anymore. It's going to be Dijkstra. Because Dijkstra's going to boost by 18, not 9 when you pull him. And then you're going to shuffle him back. And now are you starting to see the power of the Drakenborg? I think you might be. I'm scared of this deck, I'm not going to lie. I have genuine reservations about how it survives. Maybe the meta will probably move it away because everything will go Heatwave heavy. We will see. The only one I made for Northern Realms. That is Northern Realms done. Oh, Nilfgaard! It's Clog City. It is Clog time, which of course means it is Colgrim. First one decided to be tactical decision. I went with Renew double Colgrim. Sandor here is a win condition as good as Colgrim in every way. If your Colgrim gets dealt with, do not worry. This card is incredible. It is also completely worth targeting with your Letho in a lot of situations. So many of the lists that exist right now suffer to this card. It's the engine of it that really hurts. The drone and the fact that with Abduction you can pull out a 19-point drone is terrifying. That synergy is amazing. But whenever a card enters or leaves your opponent's deck, this boosts itself. Think about that in the current meta that might exist. I've just talked about how Northern Realms is going to shuffle. Every time they use their leader, this boosts. You want to play Simless and Waylays, Alyssa Henson, put things back in the deck? Excellent. Boost. Vanadane, shuffling the 2 cards created into the deck. There are so many ways that this is boosted just by your opponent's strategy, let alone all of the times that you can do it yourself. I don't think I need to explain how Clog Colgrim works. Give your opponent lots of things in their deck. Thankfully a little bit healthier now because they go to the bottom of the deck. And then you want to play your Defender, play your Colgrims out. You can very easily try to 2-0 with this list and go multiple cards down. That's not the efficient way to play this strategy by any means, but you can. It's an interesting deck. It's a lot healthier than Clog used to be. I still don't love it. You do have the Tactical Decision Leader ability for a bit of hand fix to pair with your Snowdrop to be able to push and give you that round control that you regularly need. Clog and lots of Nilfgaard archetypes, in fact, lots of things in general, really suffer to being bled. The Renew is there to help you with that, so that even if you have to commit your Colgrim, you don't lose it altogether. List thins really nicely. Generally speaking, you're not worrying too much between your leader, between your Snowdrop, Dead Man's Tongue as well, of course, a really nice option. And a Roderick, just in case you're missing one of those key golds. Alarmingly consistent, decent points. Play it. I'd love to hear how you get on. I did also build Golden Necker Clogrim, but this one really isn't too much new. It's Golden Necker Clog, Abduction. I've heard people ask whether this is worth it without having access to Sandor. My answer is 100% yes. There are so many ways that this becomes valuable to you. For example, any of the cards you obviously put into the deck in clogging, but Cynthia particularly, she is then obviously pulling out a huge 0 provision guardian value from abductions. Really nice. There's an amazing Enslaved 6 new version, half clog with the new cards that potentially exists. We faced an idea of it on ladder today, and I think it could be very good. I think it could be very, very good, so keep your eyes out for that. There is a consideration in this list because the Golden Necker version does generally want to run 2 Viper Witcher Mentors, and we have none. If to do that, we'd have to cut Cynthia and the Infiltrator, I think. And I don't think we can afford to do that. Actually, we'd need to cut even more than that. And I don't think you can afford to do that, unfortunately. The list does want them, might miss them. Certainly not ideal. In fact, no, it's Knickers and the Infiltrator you'll kick for the 2 of them in order to make that happen. You might want to do that. If you do, let me know how you get on, because these are decent point slams when your opponent has missed good cards. But Modern Clog is clogging at the bottom, not the top, so you're less likely to see your opponent miss cards as a result of your strategy. It's why I left them out. That's Nilfgaard done. Not long now. I'm going to go to monsters next because Syndicate was the hardest to do and is the one I'm least confident in and would love your feedback. Firstly, it is a more control-heavy Araka Swarm. I think everybody is going to be very keen to go straight away. Swarm, 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 swarm. And I get it. I love it. It's amazing. The first version I built had Triss. It had Bone Talismans. It had Original Yen. And I looked at it and thought, do I actually win with this, even with the new cards, even with the change to Kiki Queen, of course, now thriving off of an organic card, for instance? It's good, it's interesting, I'm not convinced it plays into the synergy of the new cards very well. I don't believe it does, and it certainly doesn't fit with Glusty, which does pair well with that. I think having access to some more control-heavy things, Lacerate, for instance, right now, should be very good, as if elves end up being meta, Lacerates create you a ton of 1-point units, amazing for the acid, fantastic for the Glusty, should be very good. The rework of Ida as well, if this card doesn't get locked, you're winning that round. This is petrifyingly good when you consider the number of ways you can make this deck work. Some of you will be thinking, why Crimson Curse? In short, it's an organic, so it spawns for you, well, 3 units it spawns for you. Every spawn value can be even more beneficial when you pair with Hive Mind, but it is a lot of value. It's 17 for 10. That's pretty decent. And again, more damage, more overtime, click and control. Very, very useful. In my opinion, a card that should fit into the archetype. All the way down the bottom, you've got your general cards. The Kikimor Stalker might be my favorite card of the expansion. I love the synergy of this, and the Predator keyword is delicious. I might be biased because I revealed it. Yeah, I'm biased because I revealed it, but it's still great. Still great. But this is all about using the value, using the wide spawn, and of course the damage that you have to win a round, and then taking control, building yourself up to a delicious, explosive, huge Glusty Warp. That is definitely what you want to do with this list. We won with it when we played it. It is fun. It is more control oriented than it is wide swarming, but it does both very, very well. You could easily, of course, go the other way, go wide swarming, depending on how the meta appears. If you're going to do that, I think it's probably going down the Golden Necker route. Personally, where you're running the Kikimore Queen, Glusty is just another win condition, and you can fit so many powerful units into this deck as well. That way you are running things like Doldilock for an additional Chimera, for that boost. Bone Talisman's having the organic tag these days. Life-changing for this deck. And the rest, it's all about swarm and spawn. Swarm and boost. Buff. Golden Necker is just all about extra points, honestly. You've got a decent number of specials in this deck that will help you out as well, so that you're unlikely to brick. Your biggest risk, of course, is your artifacts. You have got the location and a Vial of Forbidden Knowledge in there just to back it up. Last, and maybe least, honestly, Syndicate. Now, one of the things with the Syndicate cards, I think they're very, very good. I think they're going to be grossly underrated, and it's going to be until we see esports qualifiers and a couple of the pros test out these lists and these cards and find where they fit best that we're going to see the best out of them. I was trying to think where they go, and I feel like their best bet is somewhere in Blind Pockets, maybe Bounty. I built a Crimes mid-range list. It's mid-range value, things like Hemmelfart to try and get as much value as you can. You can even pair it with Senior. I know it's a little bit old school, but it demands an answer, and people are greedy early on. That is because I think Casimir Bassi being able to be on the board, Veil, difficult to remove, and then use those explosives could be really volatile. If you've got enough Crimes and you're getting enough value out of the removal, could be very worth it. The Oxenfurt Guard at 4 for 4 with this fee, delicious. And in Crimes, particularly if you're running things like your Tunnel Drill, like your Cleaver, you're looking to spend your coins every turn. We've gone with lots of different spenders throughout this list. The Bare Knuckle Brawler, always happy to be spent on. Oxenfurt Guard. It's a very, very mid-rangey list, one that could probably be improved on, and I'd love to hear how you do it. This was our very first list, and we ended up... Igor Townsfolk, by rights, could be very good here in non-devotion. It's a possibility that the cards fit very well into this. Haven't tried this out yet. I'd love to hear if you pilot this or if you make any tweaks. Casimir, in this instance, just good mid-range value. Evelyn, again, because we're spending our coins. Townsfolk, if you don't know, because they're not meta, whenever you gain a coin, this boosts itself, synergy with Line Pockets, and of course, with cards like Open Sesame, we can spend we can get one leader charge, we'll gain a buff for it, we can then spend it singly across many of our spenders, and then do it again and again and again and again. Roiven's Treasure is an interesting option, because depending on where you play it, depends on how it's going to proc and trigger, but you will then gain coins to spend in the next round, and it will keep giving you them back. I think you could probably replace this with some just mid-range, high-end value card, to be honest. But it's worth considering. It led us to Bounty. Now, I think this is where Casimir is going to really thrive, because he's leaving you constant damage, and you can have up to 3 explosions that you can click in the same turn that could be really, really good here. Bounty is happy to spend down to 0 to kill things a lot, and that will trigger the counters for Open Sesame. I'm still sticking with just one, and I genuinely believe the Oxenfurt Guard is one of the best spenders in the game now, and should be going into most lists that aren't worried about gang tags too implicitly. This functions like a normal bounty list that you'll have seen in the last couple of months. Lots of value, lots of removal, and because of the way the Blood Money leader ability works, bounties on low value swarm targets really can make Blood Money scale. Why I think this could end up being the best counter to some of the swarm meta, especially as it can also have really great tall punish available as well with things like Graydon. Really, really help you out if it ends up that the rain lists and their super tall messengers are the way that everybody ends up. I'm pretty sure I just ran you through all 12 of the new decks that we built, and these are a few old ones from seasons past. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you try out and your win rates with them. What changes would you make to these decks? What have you done? Is there something I've completely missed and a whole new list? I'd love you to post them in the comments down below. Let me know how you're getting on. I will definitely try and give some of those lists a go. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's helpful. And I hope you're enjoying Gwent as much as I am today. Thanks for being here, friends. As always, I will see you next time with some gameplay from some of these wonderful decks. Take care.